Good afternoon, everyone. You must be tired by now. I'm probably your 412th speaker, but I'm flattered that I was invited. I want to welcome the visiting heads of state, ministers from almost every country in Africa, members of the diplomatic corps, and members of Congress, entrepreneurs, investors from across Africa and the United States. And I want to recognize our co-host, a very good friend of mine, a great guy, the former mayor of New York City, Michael Bloomberg, whose commitment to developing the great, he warrants clapping, whose commitment to the great potential of Africa is matched only by his vision for that development. And a great champion of American business, our United States Secretary of Commerce, Penny Pritzker. For all of you from Africa, I would recommend get to know her. There's two things you should know about her. One, she's the Secretary of Commerce, and two, she's smarter than you. It took me a while to figure that out, about 10 seconds, but she knows of which she speaks, and she's excited to be co-hosting this as well. I don't have to tell the folks assembled in this room, although with these lights I can't see you, that Africa is emerging. Emerging as a continent of just incredible youthful energy and limitless promise. That energy is fueled by a population whose median age is less than 20 years of age. And I think the population of Africa shares President Obama's view when he said, and I quote, "I do not see the countries and peoples of Africa as a world apart. I see Africa as a fundamental part of an interconnected world." Growing at nearly 5% last year, with a GDP of more than $2.5 trillion, 90 million African households have household incomes that exceed $5,000 a year. Exports have quadrupled since the year 2000. More wealth has been created in the last 10 years than any previous decade in history. I had an opportunity to meet with the President of South Africa today, and I made a bit of a joke. We're talking about investment not only in South Africa but around the entire continent. And Mr. Mayor, I said I started my career as a 30-year-old kid trying to get businesses to disinvest in South Africa. And now I'm busting my neck to get them to invest. So that's the mark of the progress we've made here, folks. I mean, it's a completely different paradigm, and it's good. America is excited about the prospects of Africa because Africa possesses two incredible resources: an overwhelming abundance of natural resources and the resources of its people. And both its people and its natural resource warrant significant investment and development. But I'd like to focus just for a moment on the people. As I said when I spoke yesterday at the African Civil Society meeting, the people of Africa and their leaders are attempting to tackle the establishment of sound political and economic institutions, the creation of wealth that reaches beyond the elites to provide people with economic opportunity throughout the continent, including women and girls, forging of peace in some countries still torn apart, protection of the health of your citizens. And you all know the great talent that exists in Africa, but turning that talent even in a greater capability requires significant commitment and significant investment. But if Africa's governance and institutions can put its people in a position commensurate with their possibilities, the sky is the limit. I mean, it is limitless. There's no reason the nation of Africa cannot and should not join the ranks of the world's most prosperous nations in the near term, in the decades ahead. That's simply no reason. As we look to the future to try to help realize that vision, the question is no longer when I got here as a young man, as a young senator on the Foreign Relations Committee, the question always was asked, what can we do for Africa? That's no longer the question. It's what can we do with Africa, not what we can do for Africa. What can we do together? What can we do together? And I mean that. The President means it as well. I believe there's a significant opportunity for the United States and Africa to do more that benefit both our peoples. This is America's economic self-interest. $50 billion in U.S. exports to Africa already support 250,000 American jobs right here in the United States. African consumers are spending $1.3 trillion. And that's projected to double by the year 2030. At the same time, AGOA, the African Growth and Opportunity Act, has allowed more than 6,400 African products to reach American customers duty-free, supporting African jobs and industries ranging from vehicles to vegetables. Since 2010, non-oil exports from sub-Saharan Africa to the United States have almost quadrupled. I see no reason why, and this is not hyperbole, I see no reason why trade and investment between the United States and Africa should not double or triple or even quadruple in the decades ahead. But to get there, each of us has a whole lot of work to do, and no one knows that better than the people, particularly the heads of state sitting in this audience. To start, American businesses have to show up. My dad used to say to me as a young man, he said, Joey, half of winning is just showing up. American businesses have to show up, and they are showing up. And they're doing it in greater and greater numbers to compete alongside Indian, Chinese, European companies for African trade and investment. It's sort of stamped into our DNA. We like to compete. We welcome the competition. But because it's not just how much we trade and invest that matters, it's how we do it. We can always do better. But the United States is proud of the extent to which our investment in Africa goes hand in hand with our efforts to hire and train locals, to foster economic development and not just to extract what's in the ground, to protect human rights, labor rights, and protect the environment, to create new opportunities for women and girls. A famous columnist here in the United States says, women are half the sky. They are half the sky. And to win contracts and friends on the merits, not through kickbacks or bribes. This can be hard when others cut corners, but we believe it's absolutely worth it, not only to help growth, but also to ingrain a set of rules of the road that are fair and decent to all competitors. Because the ties we are building are ties that have to last. The rules we're advancing are rules that will benefit us all. And the prosperity we are promoting is prosperity we can sustain together if we do it correctly at the front end. The United States government has a great deal of work to do as well to help realize the full promise of this moment. And you'll hear about that from many other U.S. officials, particularly one that will be following me in an hour and a half or so, who I just left, the President of the United States. We're working with the United States Congress to renew AGOA before it expires next year. We're working to connect more African companies with American businesses. And the United States is also providing more direct support to make trade and investment easier. Our Export-Import Bank financed a record $1.7 billion in exports to Africa over the past 10 years. We should do more. The Overseas Private Investment Corporation, OPIC, has financed nearly $3 billion in projects across Africa under President Obama. And every dollar invested by OPIC has sparked, on average, $2.60 in additional private sector investment. U.S. Trade and Development Agency has funded over 100 projects expected to generate over $1 billion in U.S. exports while building up the infrastructure of sub-Saharan Africa. In each of these areas, President Obama will announce very shortly significant new initiatives. We're also focused on energy. I need not tell this audience 2/3 of Africans still regularly go without electricity. If we can help you power Africa, that will empower the people of Africa to grow their economies. That's why, under President Obama's leadership, as he will discuss later today, the United States is helping to mobilize private investment and offer financing to help Americans provide to help Africans provide for yourselves clean, affordable, and abundant electricity, which is badly needed. Today, the United States will sign a $500 million Millennium Challenge Corporation Compact with Ghana to strengthen its energy sector. And let me give you an example of what U.S. efforts to help Power Africa look like in practice. Last week, the U.S. Export-Import Bank authorized a loan guarantee to support long-term financing at Azidu, the power plant on the Ivory Coast. The country is just emerging from a civil war. The commercial banks weren't ready to offer long-term financing, but America stepped up to fill the gap by guaranteeing a loan for the West African Development Bank. And in so doing, we are helping Azodo upgrade that facility to increase its output by nearly 50%. American jobs manufacturing steam turbines for export are from Schenectady, New York, and Bangor, Maine. It's American jobs. This is one project that is expected to increase the overall supply of, this one project will increase the overall supply of electricity in the Ivory Coast by as much as 15% and create one of the most efficient power plants in West Africa. As much as we hope to accomplish in partnership with you, we also know that nothing will be more consequential to Africa's future than the steps nations take to empower your people to make the most of their talents. Of course, to state the obvious, no two countries in Africa or anywhere else are the same. No two countries will do it the same way. But there are certain common ingredients to success in the 21st century that have become self-evident. The need for greater economic integration, a court system that adjudicates disputes fairly, a commitment to invest in all of a society's people and respect their rights. Because countries that respect citizens' equal rights, no matter what their gender or religion, no matter who they love, tend to be the most attractive to attracting international talent and international investment. It's good business. It's just simply good business. Rules that level the playing field for private companies. It's good business. Regulations that make it easier to start businesses. And today, there's genuine success, a number of stories that can be pointed to. Business startups cost in Africa have fallen nearly 70%. Startup costs for business have nearly fallen 70% just since 2007. The time to start new business has been cut in half. It's no surprise then that 400,000 new companies worldwide have registered last year to do business in Africa. That's a big deal. When the World Bank ranked the 50 most improved countries with respect to efficient business regulations, 20 of them, 20 of the 50, were in Africa, including the most improved environment in the world, Rwanda. We all know there's a great deal more work to do, but we all know the way to get it done. It's hard, but we know the path. We know that in the unforgiving daylight of the global economy, investments can and will go elsewhere when it sees excessive regulation, a broken judiciary, or widespread corruption. There's a reason why, Mr. Mayor and Madam Secretary, after years, the United States of America is once again the destination of all the major companies in the world, considered the best environment in the world to invest. Because we have a court system that's real. It works. Corruption is de minimis. Energy cost, et cetera. I think what we underestimate the most, and I think the leaders all here know it, is corruption is a cancer. It's not just ethically wrong, it's economically crippling. By some measures, illicit financial flows out of Africa in recent decades, including corruption, measure in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Some studies have estimated over $1 trillion. Corruption is a global problem. It's not an African problem. It's present everywhere, from the Ukraine to East Asia to even here in the United States. And we have to take it on together. That's why President Obama helped launch the Open Government Partnership, where 8 African nations, the United States, and 55 other nations act together on a common commitment to more open, transparent, and accountable institutions. And that's why America is doing its part to ensure our legal and financial systems cannot be exploited to launder the proceeds of corruption and theft from Africa. This includes new proposals from President Obama to prevent the use of anonymous U.S.-registered shell companies. That's why we've joined 23 African countries in the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. That's a mouthful, but there's a lot there. Because Africa's natural wealth should not be stolen and repatriated under the cover of darkness. It should enrich Africa's people under the rule of law. I'm known, as the mayor will tell you, in the White House as the White House optimist. I feel very good about that because when they say that, it implies I'm the new guy, that I haven't been around a long while. I've been there longer than all of them. But I'm more optimistic today than I have when I got elected as a 29-year-old kid as a United States Senator. Because the promise and potential around the world, particularly in Africa, is immense. It is immense. And Africa's economic future is profound. I'm optimistic about my own country. You know, I have traveled about 1 million miles just since being vice president. And I don't think there's a major leader in the world I haven't met over the last 30 years, just because of my job, not of my consequence. And I'm reminded by some world leaders what I have told them in the past, and I say it again. It's never, never, ever been a good bet to bet against America. It has never, ever been a good bet to bet against America. And America is betting on Africa. The idea and the reality are just tantalizing. The possibilities are immense. We're betting on each other, Africa on America and America on Africa, and what we can accomplish together for the enormous benefit of our people. I will end, if you'll forgive me, by quoting one of my favorite poets. John Kerry, you're going to hear from next, will tell you my colleagues always kid at me because I'm always quoting Irish poets. They think I quote Irish poets because I'm Irish. That's not the reason. I quote them because they're the best poets in the world. That's why I quote them. One of my favorite contemporary Irish poets who just passed away, Seamus Heaney, once wrote in a poem called The Cure at Troy. He said, "History says, don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, that tidal wave of justice rises up, and hope and history rhyme." We have a chance. You have a chance. You have a chance in Africa to make hope and history rhyme in a way that has never occurred before. We want to be your partners. We want to compete for your business. We want to compete for your hearts and your interest. But we want to see you succeed, because when you succeed, the entire world succeeds. Thank you for giving me the time. I look forward to meeting you all tonight. Thank you.